Speaking of arenas, real quick, now we'll give you a little respite from talking about the Phoenix Suns in terms of the on-court product, because we all know what a struggle it's been, and we know what a struggle it's going to be. And we'll get into that in just a minute, because we've got a couple more days before the post-All-Star break portion of the schedule begins. But since we're talking about arenas and since we're talking about stadiums, and we were talking about Chase Field in the last segment and the positive momentum building towards that recaptured tax and them being able to do the renovations they want, very observant people noticed that they were taking the Footprint Center sign down from the Suns Arena in downtown Phoenix over the weekend, suggesting that perhaps a name change was on the way. You're here to tell us a name change is on the way.
Yeah, there'll be a interim basis. The Suns Arena is going to be called PHX Arena, just on an interim basis, as the naming rights will go to market. Now, it probably won't take long. This will be a very hot commodity because of all the great events that are coming up. You've got the All-Star Game in 2027. We've got a Women's Final Four. There's always a lot of concerts and venues, so it'll be very popular. I imagine 3 to 6 months they'll be able to secure naming rights, and Footprint will remain. They'll remain a sustainability partner for the Suns and the Mercury through their eco-friendly actions. So, they're going to be able to maintain a partnership with Footprint, but they're also going to take the naming rights to the market. And we've got, the fifth largest, in the country, market-wise, Arizona. So it'll be something they take to the market. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest, and they'll be able to find a partner, a long-term partner that could be the naming rights. So temporarily, PHX Arena on an interim basis as the naming rights.
That's going to take some getting used to.
PHX Arena.
PHX Arena.
I don't. Again, this will be a hot commodity. There will be a lot of companies that will be very interested in the naming rights of the Suns Arena for a lot of reasons. Again, the All-Star Game coming up, the Women's Final Four. You've got the Suns, you've got the Mercury, you've got all the concerts, you've got all the events that they have at that arena. It will be something that I don't think it'll take very long for them to find the right partner. But this is a good thing because Footprint stays on in a less capacity, but they do stay on, and they'll be able to go shop the naming rights for somebody else.
Just remember when they named it the Footprint Center in the first place?
Right.
It was so unique, right? Like it was in terms of like we're all grown-ups here, right? Like the days of not giving these buildings sponsor names like this, it's well past us. We crossed that threshold 20 years ago, so no one's going to sit there and complain about that anymore. What you're looking for is something kind of unique, something different, something that kind of stands out a little bit. Footprint Center always kind of stood out from the crowd a little bit. Like it was very memorable. It was very kind of stuck in your head. Like it was.
Do you remember the commercials, the early commercials? I'll never forget it because the kid was wearing an Islander hat. He was.
Oh, and
I'll never forget the early commercials. It's like we're in Phoenix, and the
all
Footprint
this plastic
Center
in the ocean,
and the kid's got an Islander hat on. He's wearing an Islander hat.
I remember that.
And I'm like, wait, I'm an Islander fan. That's in Long Island. That's not like here. So he's got a kick out of the commercials, having a kid with a New York Islanders hat on. While we're here in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's how it'll work out. So, I expect, again, I don't think it'll take very long. The naming rights will be out there on the market. There'll be a lot of interest in people and companies wanting to be partnered with the Phoenix Suns. I don't think it'll take very long. But in the meantime, temporarily, PHX Arena on an interim basis.
Meanwhile, now back to the unpleasant work of the basketball team with 28 games to go.
They are a disaster. They are the second biggest disappointment outside of the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm telling you, they can't play dead in a Western movie. When it comes down to having KD, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, this team has underachieved like no other. They thought they filled some of the voids with the offseason additions, but that still ain't cut the mustard.
Yeah, but we're not going to see the Suns in action until Thursday night when they take on the San Antonio Spurs.
Big game.
And what is already a huge game.
Huge.
Like right out of the chute, it's a huge game for them. Story today on ESPN.com in which they were kind of going through everybody in the West and taking not one last look at them, but kind of, okay, here we go. It's the sprint to the finish. Here's the last look. It was by our guy, Kevin Pelton, run the simulations, Kevin Pelton. He ran the simulations.
Okay.
28% of the time, the Phoenix Suns reach the play-in tournament. 28% of the time.
Now, I think 6 is probably out of reach because you got 4 teams ahead of you, and the Clippers are 5 games ahead of you. So, to get to 6, you've got to pass 4 teams. I do think the Suns are going to be in the play-in tournament. I do think they're going to be participating in the playoffs. I do not see the Suns missing out. But
is that a hunch? What do you base that off of?
Dallas is going to fall. I can't believe. I don't expect that Dallas is going to play very well. I think the Suns are going to be better than Sacramento and better than Dallas.
Okay.
I'm not saying it, and I think Golden State will be better too. So I'm not saying I think the Suns are going to cruise and go 20-8 and get the 5 seed. I think that they're going to have to battle and figure out a way to make this work. Now, you know me. I'm more about being like, the players need to be held accountable for their actions. They dug this grave, okay? They made this bed. They've got to lie in it. They got to figure out a way out of it. I don't think Budenholzer's done a great job, but it is up to them to go out there and play meaningful basketball games and win some of these games, and get in. I mean, right now, if you ask me, what do I think they're going to get in the play-in tournament, but I don't think that they're going to get to the 6th seed. So, and I would even say I think it's more likely they're a 9 or a 10 than they are a 7 or an 8.
Okay, I mean that's probably a good way to couch it a little bit. I think it's remarkable to think, and I hadn't really thought of it this way. They're a Grayson Allen 3-pointer away from a 7-game losing streak.
The Jazz game.
That's the only one they've win during the month of February.
2 3-pointers in 4 seconds.
Right. I mean, it was a miracle considering they had a 13-point lead with 6 minutes to go in that game. That miracle win by them in overtime is the only one they've had so far in February. And if not for that one, it'd be a 7-game losing streak. I don't think they're going to make the play-in tournament.
You don't?
No, I don't. I think that I buy what you're saying about Dallas. And the fact that they've won 4 of their last 5, I don't think is very sustainable.
Crazy.
I'm buying what you're saying about Sacramento.
You think the Spurs pass them?
I agree that those 2 teams could drop. I'm very much worried about the Spurs.
Yeah.
And I'm just forget about all the exterior stuff. I'm worried about a team playing the toughest schedule in the NBA. I'm worried about the teams, quite honestly, their fragile psyche after the trade deadline and how they respond to that. I mean, Kevin Durant was on ESPN today, a long sit-down interview with Malik Andrews, and he'll be fine, but will they be fine? Do they collectively have this belief that they can play their way out of it after being as bad as they've been all year long?
I hope they do.
And I hope they do, but I think at this point, I can't count on it.
No,
I can't believe it. I just can't believe that it's
that they're
there.
2 games under 500 right now in 11th place. Nobody can believe it.
I can't believe
the roster's
that.
too good for that.
And I can't believe they're capable of getting themselves out of it. I just don't think they are at this point.
I'm a
think
big believer you are who you are.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer. Look, there's 28 games left. If you split those games and go 14-14, and that might be asking a lot, that puts you at what, 40 wins?
Yeah.
It might not be enough to get in a play-in tournament.
One of the
40
things
wins.
we've complained the most about this year's Suns basketball team is that lack of fight. You know, that when they get punched in the mouth.
Number one problem.
They don't respond to that. I just don't see how they're going to respond with 28 games to go. So we're expecting a team that has had no fight all year long to discover their fight with 28 games to go when they've been punched in the mouth.
Well, I don't know how you can discover something you haven't had.
That's what I mean. And that's why I don't believe it. That's why I don't believe it's there.
Listen, I understand. It's just hard for me to think that this team can't be a top 10 team in the West. There's still something about, you've got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. You're going to find a way to win some of these basketball games. Again, I'm not a big fan of what the job Budenholzer has done. That San Antonio game, look, you come out and lose that game to the Spurs.
Yeah.
You might be right. I mean, you can't afford to lose many more basketball games. And the mush part of the schedule, what are they, 2-2 against the mush?
And they've got more mush coming up after San Antonio. But then when the beginning of March rolls around, the mush is done. There's no more mush left.
That's a
for the
10-game
Phoenix
schedule
Suns.
that's just brutal for them.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.